Alright, welcome to the lunchtime video, my favorite video. I'm going to need to wrap it up a little early today because I can't upload the video in the last 5 minutes. It takes longer than that to upload. And if I'm uploading the video and I'm in a conference or something and it's still uploading, it'll affect my audio quality. So I guess I could just wait until later to upload it, but I'm planning. I've got kind of a bigger presentation today, so I'm gonna end it a bit early. I skipped the after work video yesterday. I'm not even gonna feel bad about myself for that. Just things are so wild and crazy right now in the USA and everything. Really, what I'm trying to do now, more important than the JNCIE-SP, anything like that, is just kind of get my health back. Because it's been about 6 months since everything kind of blew up and changed with the pandemic, and in that 6 months I haven't been doing really anything of what I used to do, and what I used to do was keeping me in pretty decent shape. So I'm up 10 pounds and I just don't feel super good physically right now, so studying for this test really has to take a back seat for establishing good constitutional habits. And the good news is I've been able to do that this week after work. So once I start kind of feeling better, getting a little bit healthier, I'm sure I'll be able to squeeze in an after work video from 5 to 6 like I was doing before. All right, so we are back. Let's look at the folder that I had before. Oh, I had it under life because CCNP is my life. Or, well, CCNP was my life, but I passed that. Now it's the JNCIE-SP, even worse. We actually had a pretty good series going on shared risk link groups. So we're coming near the end of that series. We're just finishing the final examples, which are just modifications of the previous example. So I think this is going to be the 5th and final video, and I added a new tag, SRLG. I figure it's kind of unique enough to where if somebody's actually searching for it, they might find this video and it might be helpful to them. So I won't need this anymore, but it is definitely useful now. So we're going to start with configuring device number 3. So I will open my lab. Oops. So it looks like it's forcing me to download GNS 2.2.8. That's really bad. If I have to do that, that means I'll lose access to my remote server. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit cancel right now and hit yes. And if they ask me again, I'm gonna hit cancel and yes again. So I'm gonna try to open it up again, and hopefully I won't be asked that again. Okay, so I think I just opened the wrong application. Instead of opening GNS3, I accidentally opened up the installer file. I still have that. I probably need to delete that after it's installed. But you can see there is a new version available. They're really kind of moving fast. They put out a lot of new versions. 1.0 or 2.2.12 is available. I'm on .8, so if they can make Juniper's boot up faster, I definitely would want it, but right now things are working pretty well for me. There are delays. It's not perfect, but it works, so I don't want to spend any time on it not working, which is very possible if I were to do that update. So I'm going to skip that for now, and we're going to move to provider 3 and make the configuration changes there. I don't think there will be any. Okay, so everything looks good there. Alright, so everything is good on provider 3. Let's move on to provider 4. So we did add some new links, so there might be some changes required on here. Alright, so oops, it looks like we don't have the configuration for that new link, so I will need to add that. Okay, so everything else though, of course we're going to need to add the new link to all the protocols as well. So we'll start with protocol RSVP. Okay, and then move on to MPLS. Alright, and then we'll finish with OSPF. Oops, and we'll add it to area 0. Oh, it won't let me. Okay, well, that's okay. Okay, so we've got the new interface with an iNet address and with family MPLS capability enabled, and then we've got it added to all of the protocols. Alright, time for router 5. Okay, so we've got the same number of interfaces here. So no changes are required on router 5. I do see that router 5 has not been configured with OSPF, so I'm going to add that. And traffic engineering is required because it's OSPF. That's not required if it's ISIS. Okay, let me do a short pipe compare. And yep, it was just the OSPF information that was missing, so that's now added on there. So I will move over to PE2. Alright, so we've got, yep, all the correct interfaces on there with the correct IPs, correct subnet masks. So everything looks good to go. Yep, so yeah, let's go down to the verification steps. Okay, so right here we're going to confirm that the configuration is working properly by verifying the SRLG cost and ensuring that it's added to the TE link. So the purpose is to verify that the SRLG cost is added to the TE link if it belongs to the SRLG of the protected link. Issue the show TED link detail and show RSVP session extensive bypass commands on device provider 1. Okay, so we're going to keep an eye out for these connections here. So it's going to be 10.255.0.2. Here we go, and then it's going to be the connection going to .27. So this one right here. Okay, and we're gonna see, yep, so it looks like in this case the local path matches, the metric matches, static bandwidth, available bandwidth. Last video, the local path was flipped, but I did have some configuration issues. I think I had that OSPF missing. I had it so that the path probably was different. I was missing the LO0 configuration on PE2 as well, so lots of differences in the last video that are now no longer different in this video because I made the necessary config changes. Alright, let's take a look at the next one, which is going to be 0.3 to 37.7. Okay, so I don't see this. I'm going to use a filter to see if I just am blind. See if I can audition to be a referee. Alright, so yep, it was there, so I can officiate any sporting event that that needs a referee. Okay, so here it is, and yep, we can see everything matches as well, unlike before when I had configuration errors. So I think this is a really good sign that there are no configuration errors anymore. Okay, so before moving on, I'm going to close that. I'm going to hit enter until I get a new line, and then I'm going to enter in that same command I used, but from memory, just to make sure that I have that command readily available in my line. I believe it was show MPLS TED. Show TED database or link extensive. Okay, I think this was the, okay, I think it was actually detail instead of extensive. Oops. So this isn't quite it. So this is it. Show TED link detail. Let's bring up the instructions and make sure that show TED link detail is the command that they used. Yep. Okay, so the next one's going to be show RSVP session extensive bypass on P1. Oops, and it looks like there's quite a bit of a difference on here. We don't have any output at all, and we don't have any RS. So, okay, I get it. So, let's think about what a P router is. A P router is a router that the traffic okay, so let me bring out Microsoft Paint here, and we're just going to start with 3 routers. So I'm going to count down from 5, and you can tell me, hopefully, which router is going to be a P router. If we have a LSP that begins here and ends here. LSPs are all unidirectional, so it's going to be going this way, and it's going to start here and end there. So what is this? 3, 2, 1. This is the P router here. So we're not going to have information about an RSVP session because it's just going to, it doesn't have an RSVP session on it. It just forwards the label. So I believe what they meant when they said run this command on P1 is run it on PE1. So let's try that, and hopefully we get output that is matching here, and we can go ahead and submit a downvote for this. It's pretty egregious. It took me a while to figure out, so we might be able to lend a hand to somebody else. Oops, so that is actually not true. It's now either they're using the wrong command here. Yeah, there's no RSVP session for some reason. Why is there no RSVP session? Okay, there are RSVP sessions. Let's see if there are any RSVP sessions on P1. Now, if what I said in the paint drawing was true, there won't be any. If there are some, then I will eat my words and admit that I did not have a full understanding of it, but that's actually good news because I want to develop that. Aha, so yep, I was right, because now you might say I wasn't exactly right because I said that there'd be no sessions at all. There is going to be a transit session, but I was right if you kind of give me the benefit of the doubt and assume that I meant there would be no ingress or egress RSVP session. All right, so I can close this. I can, let's see here. Okay, so let's try to find this on P1. So this is clearly not going to be on P1 because as we see here and as I explained before, you're not going to have an ingress or an egress RSVP session. You're just going to have a transit RSVP session for transit routers. And provider router is a transit router. So this ingress RSVP information is only going to show up on PE1 or PE2. Just the endpoints of the LSP will have information for ingress or egress, but they won't have any information for transit. So it's kind of interesting to me that there is no egress. That's really interesting, actually. So let's see. Okay. Oh yeah, we have nothing from 2 either. Huh. Okay, well, that's interesting that there's two of them. See, this is, I think, the problem. Oh, okay, we do have a... Huh. Okay. What if there's show RSVP session extensive bypass? So this shows nothing. What if I do bypass here without extensive, shows nothing? Okay, so I don't have a bypass LSP. So type bypass LSP, I'm going to have a different type on mine. Mine is a protection down. So there's obviously something going on with that. I think really kind of the goal of this series is to just get used to using these commands, get used to looking at these output, and if there's some issue with it not being a bypass LSP for whatever reason, it's just, I think, going to be a bit too much to look into. Granted, they might give me this exact scenario during the exam where it's not a bypass LSP and I need to make it into one. But for now, I would just kind of like to move through this at a pretty rapid pace because I am very rapidly running out of time. So the meaning of this exercise is that the shortest path for the bypass protecting the link P1 to PE2 would have been P1, P2, PE2 because the links P1, PE2, and P2, PE2 both belong to SRLG, SRLG-A. The SRLG cost of 10 for SRLG-A is added to the metric for the link P2, PE2. This makes the metric for the link P2, PE2 too high to be selected for the shortest path. Therefore, the CSPF result for the computed path for the bypass becomes P1, P4, P5, PE2. So let's see if we can look at the CSPF result and see if it matches that. So we would do show MPLS and then CSPF. Okay, so we do have a command for that, but let's see if the output is going to be useful. It is not. Alright, so let's do a monitor start on MPLS T-shoots that I had before and try making some changes to the configuration. So we've got this secondary path and it's path 2. Huh. Yeah, I really don't understand why my result is different from theirs, but I think I would like to just move on. I kind of want to get this whole thing done during the lunchtime video, and I'm very rapidly running out of time. I'm going to need to take a break too, so I'm going to run out of time faster. So unfortunately, even though I'd like to go and figure that out and get it to work, I've just got to be aware of the time. So I'm going to take about 5 minutes, come back and run through this last example, and that will be the last video in shared risk link groups. Alright, I am back, so let's do the last example here. Hopefully that will clear some things up. Okay, so this example shows how to configure SRLG with link protection with the exclude SRLG option. In this example, PE1 is the ingress router and PE2 is the egress router. Provider 1, Provider 2, Provider 3, Provider 4, and Provider 5 are transit routers. OSPF is configured on all the routers as the Interior Gateway Protocol, IGP. SRLG is configured on all 7 routers. The link Provider 1, Provider Edge 2, primary path, and the link Provider 2, Provider Edge 2 belong to SRLG, SRLG-A. You can configure link protection for the interface Provider 1, Provider Edge 2 by including the link protection statement along with the exclude-SRLG option. This makes the bypass LSP and the protected link completely disjoint in any SRLG. When SRLG-A is configured on the link Provider 1, Provider Edge 2, and Provider 2, Provider Edge 2, the link Provider 2, Provider Edge 2 is rejected for CSPF consideration due to the exclude SRLG configuration. So hopefully we'll see that in our trace options here. Therefore, the computed path for the bypass becomes Provider 1, Provider 4, Provider 5, Provider Edge 2. Let's take a look at that. So Provider 1, Provider 4, Provider 5, Provider Edge 2. Okay, so let's carefully look through this time. Be a little bit more careful than I have been before, because I want to make sure everything is good to go. So let's just print out the whole thing and go through it line by line. So we're going to start with the interfaces. We've got 3 interfaces. That looks fine. We've got all our IP addressing looks fine. Then we've got the loopback, which looks good. We're going to be eliminating the cost this time around, so let's take care of that, if I may. Oop, and I'll get a new cleaner show run. Alright, now this is the candidate configuration. It's not the active configuration, but I haven't made any changes yet, so they currently match. Okay, so we already had link protection on there. Okay, so I actually don't see any changes from the last example. Maybe there are changes on different routers. The only change I see is that the SRLG-cost configuration has been removed. Okay, so let's see if there's any changes on the Provider 1 device. All right, so 12.2, 27.2, 2.3.2 and 2.5.2, perfect. MPLS is enabled on all of them. Okay, perfect. Oh, we're going to keep the cost on here. Okay, so there is going to be additional configuration on here. We're going to, oops, and aha. So I think I found out why in that last example things weren't quite adding up. That's because I did not have the extra ports I added to P1 included in my MPLS protocols configuration. Okay, so that is included now. So we're going to need to add GE002 to SRLG-A, SRLG group, or SRL shared risk link group. So that's already on there. That's no change from the last one. The change is that we're going to be excluding this as it's in protocols RSVP. And it looks like we're not going to add 2 links. It looks like we're going to remove 3 and 4 from RSVP for some reason. That's strange. I wonder if it's intended to be like that or if it's just a mistake, but we'll just go with exactly how it is. Okay, so now it matches exactly. We'll take one final look to make sure there are in fact no differences, and then move on to provider 2. Oops, it actually looks like there are still some differences. I did not add the extra links to OSPF. Alright, so now it's time for provider 2. Alright, starting with the interfaces. 13.3 looks good. Yep, everything looks good at .3. Everything's got MPLS. So this is the .3 router. This is going to have a value and a cost for SRLG. It's going to have 3 interfaces for RSVP and 3 interfaces for MPLS, with the second interface belonging to a shared risk link group named SRLG-A, which we've defined here and assigned it a value of 101 and a cost of 10. Then we're going to have traffic engineering enabled, and aha, so we can see very clear why the previous one might have gone wrong. I'm missing a lot of really important configuration. I forgot to add the extra links to the necessary protocols. Okay, so let's move on to provider 3. Okay, so we'll start with the interface. 14.4 looks good. 45.4. This is the .4 router. We're going to have value and cost. Yep, we've got 2 interfaces. Okay, so this is the easy one. Let's move on to router 4. I have a feeling there'll be similar issues on this where I added the extra link but didn't complete the configuration for it. Okay, so starting with the interfaces, we've got 45.5, we've got 46.5, 25.5, this is the .5 router, values and costs. Yep, okay, this time we'll hit it. Okay, so yeah, everything looks good. I'm not sure why these are out of order. Usually they'll go in the proper order, or at least it seems more proper for me to have the GE interfaces grouped together and then the LO0 on its own. How it is here, that seems more like a normal order, but I don't see anything that looks wrong on there. So let's move on to provider 5. I think this will be a freebie as well. Alright, we'll start with the interfaces. 56.6 looks good. 67.6 looks good. .6, yep, cost, value, perfect. 2 routers, or 2 interfaces added to each. It looks like we've got an extra interface added to MPLS, so I'll remove that. And the interface is the loopback interface. They don't have that in the example for MPLS. They only have it added to the protocol OSPF. So I'm going to make that change. Not sure if that will change anything, but just for kind of sanity purposes and clarity, I just want them to be the same. And if there is an issue with the lab, as there have been many times before, I'd rather start my troubleshooting with what is exactly in the lab and work from there than with extra configuration. That is a loud noise. Somebody's making an incredibly loud noise. Alright, so let's start with the interfaces. 27.7, perfect, 37.7, 67.7. Everything looks good. We got MPLS on everything. We've got three interfaces. So yeah, lots of big changes, primarily on P1 and P2. I had forgotten to add the extra interface to all of the necessary protocols configuration. In addition to that, I removed LO 0.0 from the MPLS configuration, but I doubt that would make a huge difference. Those missing links, however, are very likely the reason the second example didn't look the same in their verification steps as it did in my lab, because my lab was misconfigured. Okay, so confirm that the configuration is working properly. Verifying the SRLG cost is added to the TE link. Let's verify that. Verify that the TE link is excluded if it belongs to the SRLG of the protected link when link protection is configured with exclude-SRLG. Issue the show TED link detail and show RSVP session extensive bypass commands on P1. So hopefully that second command will work now that I've got those interfaces properly configured. Okay, and we're keeping an eye out for 10.255.0.2. Found it, so it's going to be the 1.2.27.7, this one here. So yep, everything looks the same there. Let's look at the next one. It's going to be .3 to .37 right here. So yep, everything looks pretty good there as well. All right, let's look at the next one. So I don't see, so the reason we're verifying this is to, okay, so I think all we're doing is making sure that it belongs to an SRLG, and we can see, yep, both of them did. Okay, so the next one, we're going to be, I believe, verifying that the extra cost of 10 has been added. And we can see now it works because I have the routers properly configured, and I believe what we're going to be doing here is verifying that the extra cost has been added. So let's look for that. It should be a cost of 10. Okay, so I don't see anything like that yet. Yeah, I don't see anything that says there was this path was chosen because of extra cost added through a SRLG group, shared risk link group. Yeah, so I'm kind of not sure what this command is for. I really don't see anything. Maybe it's just to verify that this is in upstate, which we can see it is. And in the last example, we saw that this was not proper. So I think that's all this command is for. It's not for verifying any specific detail. It's just for verifying that this output actually does exist, which in the last example it did not, and that was because the P routers were not configured properly. The shortest path for the bypass protecting the link P1, PE2 would have been provider 1, provider 2, provider edge 2. Because the links provider 1, provider edge 2, and provider 2, provider edge 2 both belong to the SRLG, SRLG-A, the link provider 2, provider edge 2 is rejected for constrained shortest path first consideration due to the exclude SRLG constraint. Therefore, the computed path, for the bypass becomes provider 1, provider 4, provider 5, provider edge 2. Somebody was walking outside my window and it kind of jumped into my vision in an unusual way. Alright, so let's go ahead and let's just try to verify that it is going through this path, P1 to P4 to P5 to PE2. I'm not sure how we can do that. Maybe this command will allow for that. This record route. So already we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, but that might make sense because 2, 3, 4, 5 because it's including PE1. Let's see if this is different for the other, for the primary. So this is the bypass. Let's see if it's different for this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nope, looks like it's the same. One. Yeah, and the other thing I'm noticing that's really strange is that we do have an ingress RSVP on P1, even though we don't have any configuration that would allow for that as far as I know. Okay, so, well, I'm willing to, I've got like 5 minutes left, but I want to get that upload done so it doesn't interrupt. So I think I'm gonna call it here. I'm gonna go ahead and mark this as done. Okay, and then in the next video we'll be doing RSVP bandwidth constraint configuration. So I'll get my notes file ready for that and fill all that out right now because I've got a little bit of extra time. Okay, clearly the SRLG is not going to be a valid tag anymore. This is going to be the first video, and it's not going to be that. It's now going to be this. Okay, so I've got my notes ready for the next one. But before I do that, I've got to upload this one. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.